Okay, chapter 7. Again, this is definitely one of those chapters where the doing part is a lot easier than the reading part. So, what questions do you have?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Haley.
This isn't about chapter 7, but I was wondering when you're gonna let us see our scores in the class.
Still working on finalizing the spreadsheet. I was trying to get a way to move everything over to Google Sheets, and I'm having some technical difficulties. So basically, now I have to manually enter every grade over. But as far as your current grade right now, you could figure out what your percentage is just by adding up all of your test scores. I did go in last night and look at the test scores, and it did verify once I posted all the grades to Google spreadsheet or to the Google Classroom. It did correct that last question. I did put the correct answer in. There wasn't an answer at all. So for those of you who marked the correct answer and didn't get a score for it, you did get credit for it when I posted grades last night. So what you could do is add up all the information that you have right now and then divide it by the total. And if it is over 80%, you're sitting okay right now. But like I said, there's still assignments that need to be turned in. But like I said, once I finish manually putting in all those grades for both classes, I can let you know more specifically where you guys are at. All right, what else you guys got? Yep, go ahead, Peyton.
So like somewhere like in the beginning, I don't know where, but it describes what it means by fringe vision and what does it mean.
143, paragraph 2. Got it? Okay. So your central vision is basically where you are able to target things in sight. So the idea is, and you guys can do this now, but what you see is a wide variety of things. So if you can, wherever you're at, what I want you to do is focus on something in your room. Let it be a little bit farther away, about 10 feet away at least. But just focus on that one object. Okay. And wherever that is, now what I want you to do is I want you to try and see something close to it, like 2 or 5 or 2 or 3 feet away from that. And I want you to notice, how does that look when you're focusing on something else. So typically what I do in my classroom is I have you guys look at the periodic table and I have you focus on one word, and then I have you try and look at an element that's basically right next to it. And most everyone can't even read it because your central vision is very, very narrow. So the idea is what you actually focus on is not a very large window in your vision. Most people's vision is pretty good, but what we're intended to focus on isn't a very large area. So that is intended for focus and sighting. So what you do is you use a wider variety of vision to catch other things. So right now with the way my screen is set up on the grid, even if I look at one particular box on my screen, I can't read clearly names in the corners of my zoom. Okay, so that's your central vision. The fringe vision is just outside of that. And the main intent of the fringe vision, as far as driving goes, it's to help judge depth and position, and intended to look at reference points and your intended path of travel. Because that is one of the main things to focus on, is not necessarily how you sit in the lane, even though that is important. It's where you are going to position yourself. So obviously, if you look down the lane and you see that you are off-centered, you can correct that because you want to go down the lane correctly. So you base how you drive as to where you look in the future. Okay, so you look down the road to go for your intended path of travel. So again, fringe vision primarily judges depth and position to look at what's ahead of you. And that is a good question because that will be on the test. They do, as I put the test together, they do ask a lot of vision questions. So more so like what you see, just about all those are on there: central, fringe, peripheral, and even color blindness. So the two main colors that are difficult to see for people with colorblind issues are what?
Red and green.
Red and green. All right, what other questions do you have? Yep, go ahead.
This isn't really a question, but just like an assurance. Okay, so on like 154, on the bottom where it says like directional control, B acceleration and speed, and then like so on, are those under it just telling like those are going to be things that will help you realize that they're trying to do what's highlighted in blue?
Yeah. So you're talking about like A, B, and C, or
Yeah.
A through F?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. as you drive, and again, this might be one of those things that you probably, I mean, for some of the stuff, you'll know just by being in a vehicle and paying attention to other drivers. So directional control, turn signal, for the most part, is an obvious indication of where people are going. But does it always indicate where people are going? No. I mean, how many times have you seen somebody with their turn signal on because they forgot to turn it off? So that doesn't always indicate it, but it's intended to be a clear indicator. Whereas looking at B, acceleration and speed. Right now, is an exhaust smoke a good indicator? Of acceleration and speed? Why don't you think so, Peyton?
Because like I guess like when it's colder out, it might be easier to see. I don't know.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, but still technically wrong. So here's why. In the wintertime, it's easier to tell with all vehicles, because when it's colder outside, for those of you who had me in class and we spent a lot of time talking about weather, the condensation of water particles is a lot more prevalent in the wintertime because they basically condense and freeze at the same time, which is why you get that exhaust smoke, which is the same reason why you can see your breath when it's really cold outside. So usually you can see all vehicles in their exhaust, but there's more exhaust when they start to accelerate. But in the summertime, you don't see most vehicles. But there again lies the differences in vehicles. So like I said, you're absolutely right, Peyton. The only thing I will say is, what about semis? Usually in semis, you can see those all year round, especially the ones that have the smokestacks. When they start to accelerate, you can see that black smoke that comes out. There's another indication, but again, a different type of vehicle that you can see that all year round. So there's another indication of being able to see something. And then, so like semis, you can see that all year round. But as the weather changes, your situation changes as well. So, but for all vehicles, you could look at the chassis of a vehicle or the frame. So they talk about rear end dipping down or fishtailing. Also, you know, for decelerating or stopping, the front end dips down. And they give an example of that on 155. So you can clearly see that SUV is slamming on their brakes pretty hard. Okay, because you can see where all the momentum is shifted to the front of the vehicle. The picture above that doesn't really show it as much, but I'm sure you probably have an idea of what that looks like in a vehicle. But yeah, these are all just things to be able to look for. When you're driving. So one thing I do take into consideration, which I think is awesome that they put in here, looking at E, condition. If they've got body damage on the vehicle, what's something that might tell you? Yeah, go ahead, Peyton.
That they're probably not the best of driver as they've been in a crash before or something.
Yeah. And one of the things that, as far as crashes go, I look at, where's the body damage? Is the body damage in the front, in the side, or in the back? If they have body damage in the side, then it's kind of a toss-up. If they have body damage in the side of the vehicle, did somebody hit them because somebody else wasn't following the traffic laws? Or did somebody hit them because they weren't following the traffic laws? For the most part, if they have body damage in the back, I would probably err to the side of caution of somebody else rear-ended them. Whereas front body damage, I'm probably going to say that the issue was that particular driver. But that doesn't mean that they couldn't have backed up into anybody, if the damage is minor. So to me, that's a good indication of profiling vehicles as to, what, this car has some body damage. I might not want to stay too close to them. Why out-of-state plates? Why would that be a condition for a driver?
Because you might not know what their driving would be like in a different state because they don't know any of the laws.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And again, this might be something that most of you probably wouldn't recognize as a driver. I know growing up, it was just kind of neat to see cars with different license plates to see how far they were. And, my always thought is, why are they traveling around here? As I was driving up to the lakes this last weekend, I saw somebody driving with New York plates, which makes you think, what are they doing all the way out here? But now as a driver, it's important to not focus on license plates, but, be aware of them. If you have an out-of-state plate, odds are they may not be familiar with the area. So their chances of doing something unpredictable are probably a lot more likely than somebody who knows the area most likely. But I also do the same thing where if I see another vehicle where they've done something not smart, one of the first things that I'll look at is where are their license plates from? If it's an out of state, it's like, okay, I can understand, they're new. I've been in new places and done dumb things too. Sometimes it gets more frustrating when I see somebody do something blatantly dumb and they have Woodbury County license plates in Iowa, or 62 plates in South Dakota, which is what your vehicles have. So that's another pretty good indication of, what to look in for motor vehicles. Kind of a side question from that. Do you guys know how your license plates work? Anyone know? All right. So again, this isn't going to be on the test, but it'll be good for you to know because it'll help you just identify things like the condition. So on your license plates, on South Dakota license plates, there are 6 letters and numbers. And unless your license plate is personalized, the first 2 I guess, well, in this case, it's digits, are going to be numbers followed by a letter. So everyone in your area, unless they're personalized, have 62 license plates. And I assume most of you have probably noticed that. You head up north to Vermilion. In that area, most people's license plates, if they live there, are 19. You go a little bit further north to Beersford and up, then you get 44 license plates. And then you head a little bit further north up to Sioux Falls, and the license plate number starts with 1. Okay, so any idea how they get the numbers? Why are we 62? Why is Vermilion 19? Why is Beersford 44? Why is Sioux Falls 1?
I have an answer.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like how many people are in that county? Like the number of people that live in that area?
Close. You are partially correct. So the answer is correct if you are talking about Sioux Falls, because Sioux Falls is number 1. They are the highest populated county in the state, which is why they are 1. But that only goes, I think, for the top 8 counties. So the top 8 counties by population are 1 through 8. So any other ideas of how they get the rest of them? Okay, I'll give you a hint. So the other counties that I listed, 62 is Union County. 19 is Clay County. And 44 is Lincoln County. So 62 Union, 19 Clay, 44 Lincoln. Up where my lake home is, the county that we're near is Grant County, which is 25. And our residence is Roberts County, which is 55, which is why my plates are 55. Any ideas there? Guesses?
Maybe we're 62 because we're 62 miles away from Sioux Falls.
Good guess. The only issue that we have with that is I'm 2 hours away from Sioux Falls in Roberts County up by Big Stone Lake, and my county's 55.
Is it because it's like alphabetically?
Alphabetical order. Union County down towards the bottom, 62. Clay County up closer to the top, 19. It goes alphabetical after those 8 counties. So obviously Minnehaha, which is what Sioux Falls is, should be in the middle of the road, but since that goes off the population, that's why they're 1. Yankton County, I think, is like 7, which should be way at the bottom, but again, that goes by population. They fall in like the top 8. So that's how we get the numbers of where we are. In Iowa, they just do counties. So if you live in Sioux City, you have Woodbury County plates, and the Woodbury is just at the bottom of the license plate. Let's see, what else? The other thing is the registration sticker. You have to renew your registration every year, which is basically a tax that you pay on your vehicle to the state that basically allows you to drive on the roads. That money goes to help fund departments and helps to keep roads improved, whether it's clearing snow or repairing roads, things like that. So the amount that you pay is based on the year of your vehicle. So the newer the vehicle, the more you pay. The older the vehicle, the less you pay. And I think after 10 years, it becomes just a flat rate. So when you get a sticker, everyone has a renewal time. And again, that's alphabetical as well. So January, it's like letters A and B, maybe C. February, it goes on and on. But I think each month has about 2 to 4 letters, depending on where they are on the alphabet. And it's based on your last name. So let's see here. So like Zoe, you'll be more towards earlier on in the year, probably February. My sticker says 3, which means my renewal is in March, the 3rd month of the year. Whereas Kylie, Rachel, you're probably going to be towards the end of the year, being at the end of the alphabet. So the number on that little sticker indicates what month you have to renew. So the number on the sticker will be anywhere from 1 to 12. And that's when you're supposed to renew. My stickers have 3 because my last name starts with a J, and that's the month that J's fall under. So like Jace, if you get a car in your name, if you look at any of your parents' vehicles, they probably have a 3 sticker on there. Okay, so I know a little bit of a sidebar on that. It kind of applies based on being able to identify where people are from. But also important for you guys to know, because eventually you guys will be getting a car, and that's one thing that some of you will be responsible for. I know when I was growing up, I had to take care of my own registration every year. I had to take care of my own insurance. As far as the maintenance go, my parents helped me out on that, but those 2 things I was responsible for. So I had to get a job so I could pay my own insurance. All right, what else we got for chapter 7?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
What's the difference between the 20 to 30 seconds ahead and the 12 to 15 seconds?
Good question. I think you just asked 2 different test questions. Because like I said, line of sight is a big portion of that test. So 20 to 30 seconds. This is where they talked about in chapter 1, identifying hazards. They don't have it in this program, but in the driver's ed curriculum we had before, it was called IPDE, IPDE. Identify, predict, decide, and execute. So the safest thing to do when there's any type of possible conflict is to identify it. And it's important to identify it as soon as possible. So the example that I gave you guys of the kids playing basketball in the driveway, the first thing that goes to your mind is the basketball rolls out in the street and the kid goes out after it. Okay, so when you really think about it, it sounds messed up, because when I say kids playing in the driveway, your first thoughts are the basketball rolls out and the kid runs after the ball and possibly gets hit by a car. You know, how sick does that sound? You're talking about kids getting hit by a car. But in reality, what you're doing is you are thinking of the worst case scenario, but your decisions are going to prevent that from happening. So in a way, it sounds messed up because you're thinking about the worst case scenario of killing people, but that really isn't the reality. You're just trying to think of the worst case scenario to prevent it from happening. So you identify an issue, you predict the worst usually, so you decide what you need to do to prevent that from happening. And then if it does happen, you execute what you do. So that's what they call the IPDE process, IPDE, identify, predict, decide, execute. So bringing that back to here, the 20 to 30 second ahead is your target range area. For the most part, what you're going to use that for is to identify your intended path of travel. So as you can see, you're looking down the road and you are looking at the right lane on page 145. You're looking at the right lane, you're keeping yourself in the right-hand lane. But also your fringe and your peripheral will help down the road too, because obviously what you see there is you see a speed limit sign. So that's where you can identify those things. That last sentence sums it up pretty good. This gives you time to analyze conditions and make speed or position adjustments before problems develop. This is your identify zone. So your 12 to 15 second visual control, notice how the scope of your vision widens. Your target area range is something where you can just shift your eyes. If you want to look further down, you can just move your eyes. Whereas your 12 to 15 second range, now you look to tilt your head side to side slightly. And your 4 to second, obviously, that broadens out even more. Okay, so your 12 to 15 second range, this is where this would be your P and your D. This is where you would predict, okay, if these hazards are going to be more of an issue now, I need to predict what's going to happen and decide what I'm going to be doing. You know, and then your 4 to 6, if it is still an issue, this is where your this is where your execution needs to happen to avoid a collision, speeding up, slowing down, steering your steering wheel away from the conflict. Okay, so when they start that, they talk about maintaining a visual lead. So what they're saying is pick something far down the road. If you're traveling a longer distance, this is easy enough because you're looking at the lane further down the road. That's an easy spot to do. And you just keep driving towards that object, or you keep driving in the same position down the road. But yes, these will show up in the tests. Good question. What else do you guys have? All right. If not, go ahead and flip on your video and let's see some notes. All right. Okay, chapter 7 should be live. If somebody can just give me a nod when they log in. It is good. Thanks, Sophie. And go ahead and take the test. Again, make sure, read through the questions, read through all 4 choices, and choose the best answer to each question. Again, as I went through the test last night, I did see some questions that had 2 correct answers. But keep in mind, you need to choose the answer that is the best answer. Okay. There are situations where one answer is better than the other. Okay. And I know you hate questions like that. I hated questions like that. But I think in this case, there definitely is a better answer of the 2. Not every question, but I know there are at least 2 questions in there where I know both of them are right, because as I go through the tests, I take the test and then just verify. But in a couple of those, there are definitely better answers than the others. Okay. Back to my stream here. Couple of things for today. Obviously, tomorrow's assignment will be to read and take notes on Chapter 8. We will test tomorrow on Chapter 8. For those of you that get notifications about when streams are posted, new notifications, I created another stream link. So obviously we have today read and notes on Chapter 8 here. But I'm also adding another assignment. Okay. I have one that reached out to me that has a YouTube video. This is the Abate of Iowa. This is on general motorcycle safety. And again, for some of you, you may think, well, motorcycles aren't my thing. I don't plan on riding a motorcycle, which is fine, but there's only a small portion of the class that actually talks about riding motorcycles. This class is intended for everyone because it's mainly geared on sharing the road with motorcycles. So even if you never plan on being on a motorcycle, that doesn't mean that you're not going to encounter motorcycles when you drive. So there's a lot of good information in there. It's a good PowerPoint. It's pretty much exactly what they go through when they do the presentation. It's just set on a YouTube video. So I've got the information here, and then the link is right here, which will take you right to the presentation. I believe it's a 30-some minute presentation. But again, it's a lot of good information. They do make it interesting and humorous at the same time. And there are a couple of videos in there. So what I plan on doing today is I will post an assignment that just asks a few questions. Okay, it's not intended to be a quiz. It's just intended on being the fact that you watch the video. You know, and here's part of the problem. This is where we would spend a portion of our time in class looking at different presenters coming in and talking, whereas here, we don't really have the time to have presenters come in and talk because most of our time is covering the material and testing over the material. Again, especially for you guys to get this class done in an appropriate amount of time. So what that does is that makes more of an emphasis for you guys to have to do extra work outside. So again, if this were a regular class, you'd be in your seats for about an hour watching this presentation, asking questions, and in this one, I think they do typically have a quiz. But instead now, the advantage for you guys is you don't have to do the entire hour presentation. You watch basically the shortened version of that. But that still needs to be done to get your 30 required hours. So some of you might think, well, I'm doing really good on the test, so I don't need to watch the presentation and I don't need to take the assignment because I can still pass without it. That in reality is not the case. You could have 100% on every single test and still not pass the class if you don't do these assignments. You know, if it had been a normal in-class deal, it'd be a different story because points are the things that matter. Whereas in this class, points and time matter. So this is where I can successfully help you fill your 30-hour void by doing some of your work out of class and not having to be physically in class. So you are required to watch the video, and since I can't sit and watch all of you watch the video, by doing the assignment, that shows me at least that I can validate that you watch the video. So again, I know it's not necessarily the easy thing to do, but keep in mind, this is definitely shorter than the actual presentation. So please take the time to watch it, and then just answer the questions when it's posted. And again, because it is required to do so. I got in touch with a couple other presenters. I'm not sure how it's going to work. I'm really hoping that they can just send me a YouTube video like this, so I can send it out to you guys and kind of do the same thing. And then we'll be able to satisfy that 30 hours. Okay. So any questions on that? So like I said, the assignment isn't out yet. I will get it out to you. Obviously, you'll get a notification when it does get posted. But like I said, the YouTube link is right here. And I will add to the presentation links as I get more presentations turned in. Okay. And before I forget, I'm going to edit this. So today, read chapter 8 and complete tab 8 presentation. Okay. Was that with a computer, Connor? Okay. If you're able to with a phone, honestly, I think one of the best things with driver's ed is the fact that most all of you don't have your school computers anymore. I'm so sick and tired of school computers not allowing you to do things that you need to do. If you can watch it with your phone, try that. If not, what I'll try to do is I'll try to record it and see if I can send it that way, because obviously the videos are working on my end. Because I'm making them public, I'm putting no restrictions on them because they are safe for kids, obviously. But if you continue to have issues, let me know. But if you can hook up to a Wi-Fi and watch it on a phone and go that route, try that. But I'm tired of school equipment having so many restrictions on stuff, so. All right, so with that, if there are no other questions, chapter 8, read, take notes, abate presentation, and if you have questions, email me. Otherwise, if I don't see you tonight during office hours, I'll see you tomorrow morning. Have a good day.